everyone, my name is Abigail Garcia and today I'm going to be reciting the children's story, The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. But before I start, this is my audience. My mother, my sister, and our dog, Brody. The children's story, The Ugly Duckling, is about a little duckling who's very ugly, and he goes from home to home because people make fun of him because he's ugly, really ugly. And the message that is portrayed in this story is self-imagery and accepting who you are and overcoming challenges to get to the happy ending. I will now begin to recite my story. There was once a mother duck. This mother duck had no children yet because none of her eggs had hatched yet. Every day and night she waited patiently for her babies to hatch until one day when she was sitting on her nest of eggs, the mother duck felt something underneath her. Crack, 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 crack. Filled with happiness, the mother duck watched as one by one all her little ducklings popped up. She was so excited to lead her children to the pond and to teach them the ways of the duck. Unfortunately, there was one egg that was left that had not hatched yet. This egg was bigger than the rest and it was browner than the rest. Every day, all of her other little ducklings who had already hatched grew impatient, waiting for this other duck to hatch. "I want to go to the pond, mother," one baby duck quacked. "Let's go, let's go, let's go." Two more quacked excitedly. But the mother duck made all of them wait because she promised herself that she would treat all of her children the same. At the crack of dawn, on the third day, the large brown egg began to shake and shake and shake, and all the other little ducklings just watched in amazement. Then suddenly, crack! Out of the large brown egg popped a large and strange looking kind of bird. And it did not look much like a duck. This baby was a little too long, his feathers were too scruffy, and his face was a little too ugly. But nonetheless, the mother duck promised herself that she would love all of her children the same. The next day, she led her children to a nearby pond to teach them the proper way to be a duck. She taught them to quack. Each duckling quacked. Quack, 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 quack. The ugly duckling attempted to quack. Quack! After the ugly duckling's little quack, all of the other ducks in the pond began to stare and to make fun of him and to laugh at him. The mother duckling took her sad little baby duckling to a different part of the pond where his brothers and sisters wouldn't make fun of him. But two nearby ducks swimming by decided to peck at the ugly duckling's little feathers. "This one looks nothing like your others," one said. The other one said, "This one is so ugly." The ugly duckling hung his head in shame and embarrassed. The mother duckling became very embarrassed for her duckling and made him stay in the corner of the pond while everyone else practiced swimming and diving and quacking quacking and splashing. One evening, as all the other ducks in the pond began to go to sleep, the ugly duckling decided that it was time for him to leave. He knew he was causing his mother distress, and he did not want to live in a place where he felt like he was not wanted. So the little ugly duckling ran away. He waddled farther and farther away from the pond where he was born. He waddled through small marsh plants and little river reeds, and he waddled over bunches of sticks and piles, and all this waddling made him dirtier than ever. He eventually came to a new pond that was filled with a family of different ducks, and everyone there were happily swimming and quacking. He then approached one of the ducklings in the pond who looked just a little bit larger and older than himself. "Hello there," said the little ugly duckling, drawing every other duck in that pond's attention. "And who might you be?" said the mother duck. "Who are you?" said the father duck. "You are so ugly," all the other little ducklings decided to chime in. As this family of ducks began to quack and to laugh at the ugly little duckling, he ended up waddling off again in search for a nicer family to call his own. He waddled farther away from the pond of the family of ducks. He went through marsh plants and through more river reeds and waddled over bundles of sticks. And he continued to get dirtier and dirtier than he was before. Next, the ugly duckling came to an even larger pond filled with a family of geese. And there were a bunch of little baby geese, which are called goslings, who were brown and gray like he was. Happily, the ugly little duckling waddled to the water's edge and began to swim towards the family. Once he got there, he approached one of the goslings who looked bigger than he did and grayer, and he said, "Hello there," drawing everyone's attention on him. "And who are you?" "You sure are ugly." All the little goslings began to laugh and to quack, well, to honk at the poor little ugly duckling. But before the little ugly duckling could waddle away, all the geese surrounded him, and the father said, "Even though you do look quite strange, you are more welcome to stay with us. You may be a part of our family." The ugly duckling then became very happy because these geese were very kind to him, even though their honking hurt his ears. Many days and nights passed, and the ugly duckling was living happily with the geese. He loved to play with the goslings, and the mother and father treated him like he was their own. Everything was so perfect until a hunter and his basset hound approached the pond. The hunter began firing off rounds at all the geese living in the pond, and his basset hound chased all the geese trying to catch one. The little duckling could do nothing but sit still and watch. The basset hound began to approach the ugly little duckling and began to sniff him. But instead of grabbing him, he cocked his head and he said, "What are are you? You sure are ugly." And before he ran off in pursuit of a real goose. In the midst of the hunter's ambush, the ugly little duckling sadly waddled off once more. He was growing larger and his feathers were coming in, and the ugly duckling was able to fly off the ground. However, the ugly little duckling had become very weak and hungry, and he did not have enough strength to fly. Instead, he waddled his way to a small house where he took shelter during the night. In the morning, the ugly duckling was awakened by the sound of human chatter. "What is it?" an old woman asked. "A duck, perhaps?" said her husband. "Just what we've needed," the woman exclaimed. With that, the farmer and his wife allowed the little duckling to live with them in the hopes that the duck would lay eggs for them to eat. They waited, and they waited, and they waited some more, but nothing happened. The ugly duckling never laid any eggs. He did, however, grow larger and larger, and he became harder to take care of. Though the farmer and his wife had grown very fond of the ugly little duckling, they had no more room in their house for him, and so they shooed him out. "Go find yourself a family that will love you," shouted the farmer, sadly, as he shut the door. The ugly little duckling hung his head and waddled far, far away from the farmer's house. He waddled through a frozen marsh of plants and frozen river reeds. He waddled over bunches of sticks. All this waddling continued to make him colder than ever. Miraculously, the ugly duckling did survive the very cold winter. With spring, all of the frozen ponds had melted, and the frost evaporated from the marsh. The ugly duckling was still sad, however. He eventually approached a crystal pond and saw a family of the most beautiful birds he had ever seen. They were swans. As he sat by the water's edge, he didn't even dare to ask these birds if he could join their family, because he knew that he was too ugly. If he was too ugly to live with ducks, geese, and humans, he was surely too ugly to live with these gorgeous, gorgeous swans. Suddenly, a swan gracefully glided through the water over to where the little ugly duckling was sitting. My, your feathers are the whitest I have ever seen. How they gleam in the sun," the swan exclaimed to the little ugly duckling. Confused, the ugly duckling wandered to the water and peered at his reflection. Much to his surprise, he was no longer a little ugly duckling, not even a duck at all. He was a beautiful white swan with a long and elegant neck. One day, as the swans were swimming, a man and his wife strolling by with their child, the swan recognized the couple as the farmer and his wife. They approached the edge and began to feed the swans breadcrumbs. The farmer looked at the once ugly duckling and said, "It looks like you found yourself a nice little family. You are the most beautiful swan I have ever seen." For the rest of his days, the swan lived happily ever after with his swan family and was greeted very often by the farmer and his family. The end. Okay, don't do that. Thank you all for watching. I will see you guys next time. And how.